Hey, how's it going? I'm IlaGolden and welcome to Ila Reads.
Echoe wasn't sure if the experience of going up and down in theatrical wiring was exhilarating or terrifying. It gave her a strange sense of helplessness, knowing the wires were the only things holding her up whilst her legs dangled uselessly towards the ground. The first time she went up, all of her thoughts were consumed by the fear of falling and knowing there was nothing she could do to soften her impact with the ground. She kept imagining breaking both her arms and having to actually have someone push her around. The very idea of it made her feel vulnerable and helpless. Fortunately for her, it appeared she wasn't the only one unnerved by the experience. The first 7 or 8 times May had been lifted up and lowered down, she squealed and giggled like a little girl on a roller coaster. Danny hadn't said anything, but it was impossible not to notice the pale look on his face. The only one who looked even remotely comfortable was Jet, and even with him, the strange movement of his wings suggested his body and mind were not in agreement about their reaction. "Okay, darlings!" Lilith clapped her hands together. "Now you've all had a chance to get used to the movement, it's time to start working the chairs into this. Since your strength control is so unmatchable, Echoe, I want you to keep an eye on where everyone's chairs are in case they roll away from their marks. Once we have everything plotted out, it'll be easier to do. And I know it's a big ask today, so for now it'll just be straight up and down. Is everybody ready? Good. Let's get going." Almost as soon as she'd finished speaking, Echoe found herself whizzing up into the air again. Looking down, she clocked the position of all the office chairs. They were just a little bit back from where they needed to be, so Echoe brought them forward and in line with where everyone was eventually going to drop. "Thank you, Echoe, darling," Lilith beamed up at her. "But you know, as this is the first time I'm asking you to do this, I could have done it for you." "I know," she tried to keep her voice level and confident. "But I figured if I'm going to have to get used to it anyway, I might as well start from the beginning, right?" "It was that kind of enthusiasm which impressed me when you were my assistant," she bristled with pride. "I knew then it would take you far. Okay, let's see if any of you can land the chair on the first drop." Once again, as soon as she finished speaking, Echoe was in motion. She kept her eyes trained on the chair beneath her, whilst using her telekinesis to hold it steady. Not that she had long to truly think about what she was doing, as she found herself landing on the edge of the chair, almost knocking it backwards as she slipped to the floor. "I know it's an ask, darling, but maybe you could use your telekinesis to hold your legs steady when you land." Liz gave her a thoughtful look as she rushed over to check she was all right. "I know no one's managed to land on the chairs perfectly, but you're the only one who made it to the floor. It'll take a lot of my concentration and strength." Echoe pressed her lips together. "If I'm maintaining my legs, I won't be able to do the chairs too." "Okay." Lilith turned away from her. "Twigs!" She raised her voice in order to get the fairy's attention. "Twigs, I need you on stage right now." It took a few long moments for the assistant to appear, and when she did, the expression on her face was somewhere between alarm and concern. "I'm sorry, Miss Triumph. Did I—" "Why are you forever apologizing, girl?" Lilith cut her off. "I didn't call you here because you did anything wrong. I called you here because you're a strength user." Uh, She nodded. "Now, I know your skills won't even begin to match Echoe's, and I, of course, mean no offense by that. Mostly because I've never known anyone with skills like Echoe's. But since she'll be using those immense skills to keep herself from falling off the chair, I will need you to do the task I originally assigned to her. I need you to be in charge of the movement and position of the chairs, which means I will need you to work closely with the crew from now on. Do you think you can handle that?" "I will do my best, Miss Triumph." She looked half terrified for a moment, before her eyes moved towards Echoe and her expression went strange. The expression itself was a muddled cross between reassurance and determination, as if knowing she was going to be working closely with Echoe was giving her a great opportunity she was determined not to waste. In all honesty, it made Echoe feel more than a little uncomfortable, as if she didn't already have enough reason for feeling that way around Twigs. "If you like, I can use my own Astrek ability on my chair." Zanny flashed the assistant a reassuring smile, breaking into Echoe's train of thoughts as he did. "Make it a little easier for you." "Thank you, Xander," Liz responded before Twigs could. "Now let's try this again, shall we?" As soon as Lilith had left the stage, Echoe found herself being catapulted back up in the air. She then focused all her attention on telekinetically controlling her legs. Knowing she didn't have to rest her full weight on them made it slightly easier, and she just kept telling herself this was going to be more like her physio exercises. Taking a deep breath, she waited for the descent back to Earth. It didn't take long. Once again she landed on the edge of the chair, but with a little bit of balance and control she was able to put down through her legs, she was able to remain in place. Rapidly she used her arms to pull herself into a better position, so she could release control of her legs before it started draining her. Better, much better! Liz clapped her hands together. How is that for you, Echoe, darling? I think I get used to it. She flashed her a quick smile. Excellent, okay, you four keep on that. I'd like to be able to start moving the chairs and you around soon, but I need to check to see how Sunny and Lon are coming along with their first scene together. I don't know what happened to all that chemistry they had during their audition, but if they don't pick it back up soon, I might have to reconsider my choices. And I will, you know. Just ask Echoe. If you don't match up to your audition potential. She left the threat hanging there as she walked away. I saw their audition together. It was amazing. May babbled as they were all lifted back into the air again. What do you think happened to it? I think Lon had to spend a little too much time with my sister. Echoe half rolled her eyes. You've met her. She's not exactly the easiest person in the world to deal with. I have to admit, she's not what I was expecting. There was something odd about Jet's tone. Then again, some of the girls I've met would put her to shame in the attitude department. I really expected her to be a lot worse. I really wish I could pretend I didn't know what you mean. She gave a heavy sigh. But we both know how bratty the kids of actors can be. In fact, the less famous their parents are, the more they think the sun shines for them. Spoiling a child does nobody any favours. But you're not spoilt. May shot her a look. How can Sonata be spoilt if you're not spoilt? Don't parents treat their kids equally when they're famous? I know my parents treated me and my sisters pretty much the same. I mean, there weren't any favourites amongst us, and they didn't treat us all identically because we're not identical, but none of us were treated better than any of the others, so I really wish I could place my hand in front of your mouth right now, May. Zanny cut her off as they began another descent towards the chairs. You're not giving Echoe a chance to say anything. Ah, I'm sorry, she flashed an apologetic smile. It's okay. Echoe smiled back after she managed to land the chair for a second time. For what it's worth, my parents have always tried their best to treat us as equally as possible. It was Alonzo who gave Sunny her attitude. I was always damaged goods in his eyes, and especially after I decided to give up on conversion therapy, he'd have much rather I was locked away from the world, able to do, say, and achieve nothing. Because of that, my parents weren't allowed to give me any help when I was starting out, and if they tried... Alonzo was a powerful man. He could put a stop to anything he wanted. Well, almost anything. A warm smile plodded across her face as she thought about Lilith. There were people out there who weren't afraid of him, but it was still pretty hard setting out. I think I know where this is going. Zanny's face filled with a sympathetic expression. Your grandpatch might have stood in your way, but he did everything he could to help Sonata, right? Every single moment of Sonata's career up until the time of his death was hand-tailored by Alonzo's sweet charm. He picked the part she would play, and even if she had no more than a tiny cameo, he would never allow her to appear with anyone he didn't want her to be on screen with. He was so overbearing, it wouldn't surprise me if he handpicked the crew and director as well. Then Alonzo died, and things quickly started moving in a different direction. I'm not totally sure how she ended up working on Sunset Beach, but without Alonzo around pulling the strings... Echoe shrugged as they plummeted back to earth. As much as I hated that man, to see how lost and vulnerable Sunny is without him, she shook her head. It makes me feel sad, and I just wish I could do something to help her. Even though she was more than prepared to land the chair once again, almost as soon as she hit it, it moved behind her, causing her to crash to the ground once again. For a weird second, she wasn't entirely sure what went wrong. Then she figured she must have just landed it wrong and knocked it away. Are you okay, Echoe? May sounded worried. I'm fine, she shot her a reassuring smile. The chair just moved. It wasn't... I didn't... The chair... Twig started before her face filled with an uncertain look of fear. I mean, it was probably my fault. I'm not the best Strek user going, and I'm not exactly sure how to taper my telekinesis just right. Her words came out more like a panicked rant. I promise I'll try harder next time. No harm done, Twigs. She did her best to shoot her a reassuring smile. That's what all this is about, right? Practicing till we know what we're doing. Really, I'm okay. So let's just try this again. For some reason, Still had developed the habit of walking home with her when she had the kids. He didn't say anything, and his pace was usually slow, almost dragging behind them. But because he kept showing up, Synth kept giving him the pictures he'd done in art club, leaving Echoe to wonder exactly what it was he was drawing. Not that she was overly worried about it. After all, Synth's drawings were always family scenes with a tree man somewhere in the vicinity. Why art class would make a difference to that, she didn't know. And yet, something eating at the pit of her stomach made her wonder more than a little if they had. Would you like to join us for dinner? Echoe made the same offer she always made once they reached her front gate. Like always, Still hesitated. Half went to take off his bag before shrugging and walking away. Patch's family is so weird. Piccolo pulled a face as she watched her uncle disappear down the road. Not really. She wasn't sure if she needed to chastise her daughter for that comment or not, since she'd not said it with any malcontent. You know, I found out today that not all angelic fairies live in communes. Well, you already knew that, since your Patch doesn't, and nor does your Uncle Burr. Or Aunt Shell, she folded her arms. So you're right. I do know they don't all live there now, but they did all grow up in one. So I always thought angelic fairies were supposed to grow up in communes, but it turns out they don't, which makes me feel a whole lot better. Why did it make you feel better? She eyed her daughter up as they finally started making their way inside. Because I'm an angelic fairy and I'm not growing up in a commune. You're also part Neath, you know. She half scowled. And Neath don't grow up in communes. And the one your Patch's family come from is much more open than most of the ones I know about. For a start, him and all his siblings went to the same schools I did, rather than just being homeschooled. That's because they're a newer one. There was a matter-of-fact tone in Piccolo's voice. We learnt today that older communes were and still are very closed off from the rest of society. But the newer ones are much more social with the outside world, because they believe that's how things used to be. They also believe that angelic fairies are supposed to be part of the world and not cut off from it, whereas the older communes think the other way round. I know. Your Patch and I had a number of conversations about it when we were deciding where to live. Echo tilted her head thoughtfully. You know, he was the one who insisted we lived outside of the walls of the commune. No, I didn't know that, she stared up at her in wonder. Not that I was insisting we live there particularly either, but I didn't want him to feel like we couldn't set up home there because of me. But because of the way his commune works, you don't have to live within the settlement to be part of it. In fact, most of their members come and go as they please. A lot. So me and the synth could live there if we wanted? Of course. I don't think I would want that, she pulled her face. I like living here in a proper house. It's fun visiting Grandma and Grandpatch Mayfeather, but I wouldn't want to stay with them. Like I said, Pico, it's your choice. No one would ever force you to do anything you don't want to. That's not how they work, and it's not how I work either. So if I said I wanted to go to Sutton like Aunt Lil's twins, would you let me? You've only just started dance lessons, Pico. I'm not saying I'm opposed to the idea. I just think you should give it a little more time. Okay, she rolled her eyes. But we're having this showcase next Friday. You can come and see how good I am then, and it'll probably make you want to send me to Sutton. Well, if it does, you'll be the first to know. She half narrowed her gaze on her daughter again. Now, are you going to help me with dinner, or are you going to keep Synth entertained for me? Ugh, can't I just do my homework? Those pre-teenage tones once again found their way into her voice. Okay, but only if you keep an eye on your brother whilst you're doing it. Fine, she huffed. What's for dinner anyway? Homemade fish cakes and chips. Awesome, she brightened up for a moment. I really like those. I know you do, Pico. I am your murmur, remember? It had just gone 9 o'clock and the kids were finally in bed. Giving a slight sigh of relief, Echo picked up her copy of the next heartbeat script, moved into the warmth of the living room, and began memorizing her lines. She'd done this every evening since Liz had first given her the part, and it felt strangely natural thing to do. But at the same time, the more she did it, the more she felt as though she was being watched. It was hard to explain exactly, like a cold shiver on an otherwise warm evening. But it was there, and it was real. Shuddering more than slightly a few times, she tried to keep her focus on the script in front of her. It wasn't easy considering just how persistent the gaze on her felt, but this was something she had to do. Paying attention to paranoid feeling was not. She almost managed to get herself completely focused when she heard a strange sound emanating from the corner of the room. The sound was like a jingle or a tinny metallic rustling, only it was somehow more defined than that because it was almost musical. With her concentration broken, she found herself trying to hone in on the sound. To begin with, her eyes were almost closed and her head was tilted down in concentration. But as the sound became more definite and defined, she couldn't help but lift her gaze to the corner it appeared to be emanating from. It was a strange wave of thought. She didn't expect to see anyone, and at the same time she expected to see someone. What she actually saw was so faint she couldn't be certain if she was imagining it or not. She squinted her eyes, hoping for a better focus, but still the shape, if really there, remained a mystery to her. Sighing to herself, she opened her eyes normally again. That was when the blur took on a more human shape. Instantly her blood went cold as she remembered the human blur she'd seen in the rehearsal hall after the sandbag incident. She didn't know whether or not fear manifested itself in her eyes and caused some reaction in the figure watching her, but she did know almost as soon as she could see it, the rustling stopped and the figure appeared to melt into the wall. Disappointment sighed its way through her, followed by a renewed creepy feeling. Someone was definitely watching her. Whether or not it was a stalker really didn't matter at this point. The fact they were there. Edgily, she made her way towards her children's rooms and peeked in at each of them. They were sleeping soundly, giving her momentary relief. But no matter how much relief she might have felt, she still couldn't get over that someone or something had invaded her home. Not totally sure what to do, she rolled her way back to the living room and did a more thorough sweep of the space. Once she was finished, she repeated the same search in the kitchen, her study, and finally her bedroom. At the conclusion of the search, she edgily got herself ready for bed, mentally debating whether or not she should get someone else to check the house for her. A part of her wondered if her resistance was because she didn't think she would be believed or because she didn't think the blurred man was a threat. After all, she'd never seen the tree man or the wobbly man, and they'd never done her any harm. But they were both imaginary, weren't they? With a strange kind of intrigue, she made her way out of her bedroom and into the room which had once belonged to Near. Amongst all the boxes containing his things were boxes containing some of the kids' old artwork. Reaching into one of them, Echo pulled out one of Piccolo's wobbly man drawings to compare with Flint's larger tree man. The similarities between the two were almost breathtaking. What does this mean? Echo's voice was barely more than a whisper. Are you real? She found herself glancing around. You can't be real, can you? Who are you? And what do you want? Enjoyed what you've heard so far? Please consider subscribing to find out when the next part's being released. Thanks for watching. See ya!